So welcome to EBSI's Demo Day, the first online demonstration of the European Blockchain Services Infrastructure, which is a joint initiative of the European Commission and member states plus Norway and Liechtenstein. I will start with a disclaimer. Today's event will be recorded and the recording will be made available on EBSI's website and social media. So if you miss it or if you want to share it later, you can do so. We will post it and we will send the recording to you also via email following today. So I will let's open this event by just giving you an overview of the order of the day. So could I get the next slide? I want to just give you an idea of who is going to come here and present to you today. I'm Maxine Lem. I am your host. Today, I am a project manager at the European Commission DG Digit, which stands for IT. And I will be guiding you through all of the presentations today. You will get to hear from the European Commission, you will get to hear from the European Blockchain Partnership, and you will get to hear, most importantly, from all of the member countries of the European Blockchain Partnership that have prepared and worked very hard to do so, demonstrations using the European blockchain, EBSI, for you today. So they've shown on slide. You will find out more later. But I also wanted to let you know that you will also be witness to a panel. I will moderate it, and this panel will represent voices from the public sector, the private sector, from the educational sector, and finally for representing blockchain as a technology. We will introduce these panelists later today, but we will be discussing with them some future perspectives. Before we go into our event, I wanted to lay down some ground rules. My colleagues have just posted these rules into the chat for all of your conveniences, but I will explain them to you today. It is important for us all to follow these rules so that we have a good experience. So first of all, you've noticed we are on WebEx. WebEx has a chat function, which we have been using to communicate general announcements to you. This chat function will be active throughout the entire event for you to be able to comment on what you're seeing, to talk to each other, to request technical support. However, the chat function will not be monitored by our panelists and speakers today. To interact with our panelists and speakers, we will have the tool Slido. We will prompt you at dedicated times in the presentation in order for you to be able to ask your questions to the people who are presenting to you. But the chat is the place where you can ask for support from our team, get some high-level information, and talk to each other. Now, when it comes to the chat, there are some general rules, and I want to make sure that they are well understood. We will have a zero-tolerance policy for bullying, hate speech, and uncourteous behavior of any kind. We welcome debate and exchange, but it has to be respectful, and any kinds of degrading comments that target someone's race, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, or any other characteristics will not be tolerated. We will also not welcome self-promotion or promotion of any kind or spam. We also ask you to be mindful of your own privacy and that of others. Do not share your personal information like your address or your full name or your phone number or someone else's that could lead to someone identifying you or someone else. We also will not accept any encouragements of doxing. Finally, try to stay on topic. Let's try to make this understandable for everybody. You can use the chat to discuss the topics that are presented today, and that will make the conversation more pleasant for everybody else. Finally, and probably the most important part, you can access technical support. Can we go back to the previous slide, please? Thank you. You can receive technical support. We have a speaker today that is called technical support, so you can contact them. If you face any technical difficulties, just send them a private message, a PM through the WebEx chat. You can select that when you compose your message to whom you want to address it to, and they will try to help you with any issues you might have with your sound or your connection. Voila. So with that said, I think we can start and dive in. Today, today is structured into 3 parts. The first part this morning will be introducing you to the European Blockchain Services Infrastructure so that we have the necessary foundation to understand the second part, which is what we are all here for today. which are our cross-border demonstrations of live verifiable credentials exchange using EBSI that have been prepared over the course of almost a year by all of our participant early adopters. This will take place between 10:45 and 3:30. There will be a lunch break in between of about an hour. And finally, we will end the day with some future perspectives, building upon everything that we've seen today, speculating on what it might lead us to in terms of the digital landscape that we are all in. But before we do that, I want to give the floor to Veronica Gaffey, Director General of DG Digit, and Natalia Aristimino Perez, the Director of DG Digit D, for some welcome words and opening remarks in order to start our session today. So I'm going to invite Veronica and Natalia to turn on the cameras and start presenting and give you all some warm words of welcome. Thank you. Do we have Veronica here today? Or is Veronica delayed? All right, let's take a second then to sort this out. In the meantime, I will just go back to the previous slide, please, if it's possible, and give you guys a little bit more detail on what will happen today. So just give me a second. The About EBSI section will be divided into three parts. One will be about the European Blockchain Partnership that I've mentioned before, which is the partnership of 27 member countries of the EU plus Norway and Liechtenstein, so 29 European countries that are collaborating to, one, define what blockchain should mean for European citizens, but also to build it together with the European Commission. So that will be presented by Pierre Marot, who's our policy officer at DG Connect. Then we will go into our demos. Well, you see here on the slide is written multi-university pilot. The demos, include 3 demos in the morning and 3 demos in the afternoon, and they all demonstrate what we call verifiable credentials exchange. Our colleague Joao will go into a little bit more detail on what a verifiable credential is and why it matters for the future of verification for European citizens. The multi-university pilot is this test program, this incubator program that we have designed in order to test and collaboratively design the European blockchain services infrastructure with member states, but also with real actors and users in the member states. So that is universities, businesses, and obviously citizens, in this case, students. The demos will take all of these different aspects of people's lives when it comes to the university and work experience across borders in Europe. So we will first see how someone might apply for studies abroad. Then we will see how they might apply for a job across borders. And finally, we will also see how someone who comes from a non-European country who might have refugee status can actually make their educational credentials recognized by European university. Finally, in the afternoon, with our panel, we will be discussing the emergence of this new paradigm called Web 3.0. Web 3.0 has been a contentious topic, and it is often defined in conflicting ways. But what we can say about it is that it brings about the emergence of decentralized trust. And decentralization is what blockchain is all about. Now, this has a lot of implications for people. It has implications regarding trust. It has implications regarding identity. And it has implications. Oh, bless you, Chanel. If you could mute yourself, please. And I think now, after all of this said, Veronica has joined us. So I will now pass the floor for opening remarks to the Director General of DG Digit, Veronica Gaffey, who will be welcoming you today, and then to Natalia Aristimino Perez, who will be delivering some opening remarks for our day. So thank you very much for joining us, Veronica, Natalia, and if you could take the floor, thank you.
Okay.
Are you finding your sound and video options, Veronica? We hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
But I don't think you can see me.
No, I'm looking for you.
No, I'm sorry. I'm having trouble getting everything to work.
Now we see.
Do you see me?
No, we see Natalia, but we do not see you yet. And to everyone wondering, just because you run a digital project doesn't mean that your technology always works for you.
Even when we did a test run yesterday, huh?
Yes, exactly.
No, my camera is refusing to come on. And it was working perfectly yesterday. Ah, there we are. I think it works. Does it?
Not yet.
Otherwise,
Veronica, we have a picture of you on the slide. So if you really don't manage to turn on your camera, there is a visual aid here on the side that I think will help
okay.
you imagine.
No, I'm
I'm
really
so
sorry about that, but can you, sorry, this is very unprofessional. It just shows you how I'm learning to be digital. But which camera should I be looking at? The HD webcam? Natalia, you can help me? No.
In your video settings, try with the integrated camera if you're using a laptop. If you have an integrated one. If you're using a desktop, then it should be the HD webcam, but yeah, if the system recognizes it, then it's plugged in.
Okay, it's refusing to come on for me.
Okay, well, you know what? That's all right.
You have my picture, so let
You
me
have the
start. I
picture,
don't want
yes.
to hold you up anymore. So let me start. Yeah, so I'm very glad to be here with you to open this event with Natalia on the European Blockchain Services infrastructure. As Europe emerges from the pandemic, society is more aware than ever of the potential of digital technologies to enable us to communicate with our colleagues and indeed with our loved ones, independently of where we are. The next 10 years will be Europe's digital decade. And by the end of it, maybe I'll have learned how to turn my camera on. Digital technologies create new jobs, business models, and ways of living. But for us to reap the full benefits of the digital space, we must feel that we can trust the information that we share online. It's not only news can be fake. This can also happen to diplomas, driving licenses, or even to our digital identities. We have organized this demonstration day to show you how blockchain technology, together with digital wallets and a new information format and verifiable credentials, will make information easy to verify and almost impossible to fake across borders and sectors. The demos will focus on self-sovereign cross-border sharing and verification of diplomas and other education credentials. However, this is only a start, and we must think more broadly about this, as making information verifiable and easy to share across borders is relevant in almost every sector of society. I wish you all an inspiring day of fresh insights and innovative ideas that you can take home and share with others. I look forward to hearing about the results of this initiative and following its progress and its expansion into new areas. Now I will pass the floor to Natalia, who is the director responsible for this initiative and will go into more detail on our aims and ambitions in working together with you. I pass over to you, Natalia. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica, and thank you for the organizers, and thank you for all the audience. I see the numbers increasing at every moment, so happy to see so many people joining us today. So indeed, Veronica has mentioned the importance we have seen with digital during the pandemic, but I would say even before, we have seen how digital technologies contribute to the growth and transformation of European economies. we have seen how important digital and technology is to be resilient, but also to adapt to new ways of working, to replace paper-based processes. So digital is everywhere, and we have seen also, for example, now during the pandemic, when you are in a restaurant and you want to order now, you just take your mobile phone and you check the menu from there. So technology is everywhere. And as Veronica has mentioned, Europe has the wish to become digital leadership. And this is why we are making the next 10 years Europe's digital decade. For being able to achieve this ambitious objective, we must continue supporting digital innovation, but not just innovation for the sake of innovation. And this is why we are here today, is innovation to be applied to real life use cases. So today, the demo day of EBSI, that you all know what it means, so European Blockchain Service Infrastructure, is a great example of how we can use technology to turn a common diploma into a verifiable diploma. So we can have it not only very at hand with our mobile wallet, for example, but also, and most importantly, that it can easily be verified. We can make sure of the authenticity of such a diploma. Verification is indeed the antidote to fake information, and blockchain is playing a critical role in making verification easy and accessible to everyone. Next slide, please. So what we are doing with blockchain, in fact, as Veronica mentioned trust several times, what we are doing is creating a blockchain that respects or even facilitates people's privacy. We are talking about a fully decentralized blockchain with high security and privacy standards compliant with EU values. The European Blockchain Service Infrastructure is a joint initiative. As Maxine mentioned, it is with the European Commission, all member states, but also Norway and Liechtenstein. And this joint initiative has been organized in the form of a European blockchain partnership. The aim of creating a blockchain that facilitates the sharing of verifiable information, but also what we want is to contribute to the development of Europe's digital economy, but also promote green digital transformation, and most importantly, to make it easier for European citizens to live, study, work anywhere in Europe. In fact, to make the internal market a reality, to really make easier mobility in Europe. This explains why EBSI is one out of the 10 areas of investment identified by the European Commission for multi-country projects. And multi-country is because, as you have seen since the beginning, this is a joint initiative. We have to do it together. Europe's digital decade is your digital decade, and we need to build it together. Next slide, please. So, EBSI is a standards-based ecosystem that has been co-created. We have done this with providers of digital wallets from across Europe, with more than 18 universities from 15 countries issuing education credentials, but also with verifiers from the education ecosystem and also with the private sector. So it is very important to highlight that EBSI is contributing and promoting the development of common standards. So it goes even beyond just the use of the technology blockchain, but it really supports EU-wide interoperability. And this has been done together, the 29 countries that make up the European Blockchain Partnership. So in short, EBSI shows that we must work together to advance Europe's digital transformation and have a positive impact for a better Europe. Today, You will see 6 demos that will demonstrate EBSI makes possible self-sovereign cross-border sharing and verification of diplomas. As I said, which is important is not only the technology, but how the technology is used and how it helps us to make our lives much easier. At the end of the day, as Maxine says, we will have a panel of experts that will be looking to the future and looking at how we can achieve decentralized digital trust. I hope that you will enjoy the day, that you are inspired by this community, and that we meet again next year to discuss your achievements. So I have some commitments that I need from you to work on this for the new year. Thank you very much and enjoy the day.
Thank you so much, Veronica and Natalia, for these inspiring opening words. I think you hit the nail on the head there. We're doing something extremely important, and that's going to really change the digital landscape. So thank you for that. So now that we've had this, and before we dive into the rest, I want to take a second to take the temperature of the room. And I want for us to have a little moment on Slido so that I can find out, and we can all find out, who is here today. So don't worry, no personal information will be disclosed. But I invite you all to go to Slido. So on the next slide, you have all of the connection details that you need. You can join Slido either via the QR code on your mobile device by scanning it. It will take you automatically to the correct poll. Alternatively, on any device of yours that is connected to the internet, you can click on sly.do and you will land on a website where you can enter a code. The code should be 5169212. My colleague Luisa is now going to share her screen where you will be given an instant to join our poll. So I'm going to give you a few more seconds. And those seconds are up. And now that you are here, could you let us know which country you're joining from? We're super curious to know who's dialed in. We have more than 350 people here, 366 actually. So there's many of us, and we're really curious to see which countries you're representing. So could you please let us know? Reminder that you have the QR code on the left, the website on the left, and the code on the left off your screen. Please just let us know. We're really curious. So now we have 136 people who have joined the Slido, and we should start seeing. Oh, okay. Some of you are typing in the chat. Unfortunately, I'm going to stick to the event meeting rules, and I'm not going to look in the chat. Could you type in Slido if you want to take part in our little game? There will be a word cloud that appears. Can you show the results, please? Yeah, thank you. That's what I thought. Okay, we have a lot of people coming in from Belgium, Spain, France, the Netherlands, Romania, 51691212. I think that's a different star system. Cyprus, Basque Country, Czech Republic, Northern Macedonia. So a really nice representation here from across Europe. I see a lot of regions as well. Sicily, Catalonia. So thanks for giving us that degree of granularity. We have Malta, Norway. So people from all over, and very importantly, people from the entire European Blockchain Partnership, it seems. Someone in the chat's typing Poland. And I see Poland also in our word cloud. I'm trying to pick out if there's any. The European Commission, yeah, that great country. Someone typed that. But we really did mean countries here. So for you who type European Commission, we have a question for you coming up. You're gonna love it, because our next question is where you work. So could we go to the next poll, please? I'm sorry first for interrupting you all in your enthusiasm. Our next poll is asking, we want to know a little bit where you come from, and who we have in the room. So are you from a university? Are you from one of the European institutions, bodies, or agencies? Are you European member states public administration, the private sector maybe, or are you someone entirely different? So we're very curious. And we see here that the winning category is other, which is intriguing. If you typed other and you feel comfortable sharing in the chat, then for sure, please do so. We only had so many options that we wanted to put on the poll. that obviously we picked them out based on what who we believe is following the European blockchain services infrastructure as a project. But now that we see that we have a lot of people from groups that we did not think about, it means that we also maybe estimated wrong. So we're very curious. I see that a lot of you come from the industry, working in blockchain, consulting, but I also see a trade union. And aside from the other category, we see a lot of people from the international or national public sector, university administrations, which makes sense given that today we're going to look primarily at educational credentials being exchanged in a verifiable way, like Natalia and Veronica mentioned. And then let's go down a little bit on the results, please. We also have non-EU countries, public administrations, the European Blockchain Partnership, and finally, let's go all the way down. I can't actually see the results for the last one. Okay, never mind. I won't be able to see it. Don't worry about it. Okay, so I think we've had a lot of people weigh in. Thank you very much for letting us know who you are to some level of detail. We're happy to see that so many of you are here from such a diversity of countries and also from a diversity of perspectives, viewpoints, and experiences. So before we listen to our demos today, like I announced at the beginning, we're going to find out a little bit more about the European blockchain services infrastructure. So you understand our history and why we are here and how we got there. So let's go to the next slide. You will first get a short presentation on the European Blockchain Partnership and EBSI. Then we will talk about the capabilities of EBSI because a blockchain is a ledger, but you can do many things with it. So what have we chosen to develop? And then we will go into a little bit more depth into what we call verifiable credentials exchange before a short break followed by our demos. So I'm now going to give the floor to Pierre Marot, a policy officer at DG Connect of the European Commission, who's going to introduce you to EBSI and the European Blockchain Partnership. Pierre, the floor is yours.
Hello, good morning, Maxine, and good morning to all of you. It's a real pleasure for me to be here to further introduce the European Blockchain Partnership and the EBSI, and to see that you are so numerous to participate in this demo day. I would like also to thank, of course, Veronica and Natalia for the opening remark and the introduction of the day. And as said by Maxime, I work for another department of the Commission, DG Connect, where we ensure the policy coordination of the European Blockchain Partnership and this European Blockchain Service Infrastructure Initiative. So this is the time to remind, even if it was said already by Natalia, that it's not the Commission which is developing this initiative alone. It's truly a joint initiative with all the member states, plus Norway and Liechtenstein, cooperating with the Commission to develop and deploy this infrastructure and to support different type of use case on top of it. And let me take the opportunity also to inform you that a few days ago, the European Blockchain Partnership has decided to create a new status for observer to welcome non-European country or non-members, other member state and other countries than the one from the European Economic Area to cooperate with the blockchain partnership, and they have also welcomed Ukraine to be the first country to join the partnership with the status of observer. So we are very pleased to extend the cooperation to other countries, and in particular with Ukraine. Next slide. So why the partnership and the Commission has this vision of developing such an infrastructure? It's because they started from the point of view that blockchain and decentralized model will be a way to support the digital economy, and we have everyday illustration about different projects where supported by blockchain, which are evolving. But the idea was to focus on the support of public services. By public services, we mean also to support the implementation of public policies, with such a technology, and in such a way to ensure that our public services will become future-proof and will be ready for the evolution of the web, what we call now the Web 3.0, and the evolution of the digital economy or digital society as a whole. And in doing so, what is important to note is that blockchain is often presented as, or was often presented as a disruptive technology, but it's not the objective that of the blockchain partnership. I mean, the main objective is to reinforce the trust and efficiency, in particular when we are in multi-party processes, like for traceability. It's also to contribute to improve the way people identify themselves or exchange document or certificate concerning them. In doing so, we insist on the importance of putting the citizen, the individual, really at the center of the game, by enabling them to be in control of the type of information that they share through what we call the verifiable credential. We'll come back to that during the day. And in doing so, we also aim by design to reinforce the security and the privacy aspect by avoiding a single point of failure or any central, let's say, players to be the main reliable party in order to ensure the delivery of the services. Next slide. So EBSI, thanks to the European partnership with this cooperation between all the member states, Norway, Liechtenstein, and soon also with Ukraine and the European Commission, it makes this initiative a unique one in Europe and probably a unique one in the world. We have other interesting, very interesting initiative in other parts of the world, but this one with nearly 30 countries is really a unique one. And we'll pay attention to different aspects when we develop this initiative, in particular what concerns the reinforcement of trust. This is really at the core of the infrastructure, and the way we want to implement the use case is really to reinforce trust, and in particular the trust across different countries, which is not always so simple to implement. We want, of course, to pay a specific attention to the sustainability aspect, and here the EBSI is in no way to be compared with the Bitcoin blockchain, which is so energy consuming and which is pointed out by different players, different organizations, or even country. But within EBSI, we rely on a totally different type of solution, which is a permission one, which is based on proof of authorities consensus mechanism, and we do not face the same sustainability issues. Even if sustainability will remain at the core of the project, we will, during all the life of the EBSI, we will always try to reinforce the sustainability aspect and to reduce the energy consumption related to the different implementation of services. Of course, as public authorities, we pay specific attention to be compliant with all the regulation, in particular with the data protection regulation. And with this unique project, we consider that it is one of the cornerstone projects that we have in Europe in order to enable different actors of the blockchain community to contribute and to have an opportunity to find new prospects, and in particular with the adoption of such services based on blockchain by a large number of citizens and enterprises in Europe. And the last point is, of course, that we aim to promote open standards and to make our approach not only built by the Commission, by inviting different contributors like wallet provider, it will be explained a bit further today, to contribute to this initiative. Next slide. So in terms of different type of use cases that we can support, we have on this slide, and it is not an exhaustive list, propose 4 types of categories, but once again, it's not exhaustive. One concern what is about track and trace. It could be for tracking document, but it could be also for tracking products through their digital passport. that are very important in the context of the support to the green agenda of the Union. It could be also about verifiable credential, and today we will insist on the models that we are developing with EBSI for verifiable credentials. So I don't want to say too much because it will be largely demonstrated during the different sessions that we have today. It could be about specific exchange of information where the trust is reinforced between different administrations that we call trust data exchanges. And we see already, in particular by working with other institutions from like the EU IPO, that EBSI could play a role in for IP management. So it could concern different type of application, but we are already discussing with our colleagues from the EU IPO who have created Blockathon, and we have started to support different initiatives in this context. In doing so, the EBSI should become the infrastructure that provide for trusted ledger, electronic ledger, that have been introduced in the context of the new EU ID regulation, so the EU Digital Identity Regulation. And we see that EBSI, even if it is not the sole solution, technical solution that exists, but blockchain, in particular the EBSI project, could provide for that. Next slide. So quickly, because you will learn a lot about the exchange of verifiable credential, but when we look at the type of use case for which we are more advanced, you will see that there are those who are concerned by the exchange of verifiable credential involving wallet which have been considered to be conform with the EBSI, which have passed a test for that. And this is how we build this ecosystem for the exchange of verifiable credential. Today, we will insist on the demonstration for the verifiable credentials in the education arena, but we are also quite advanced in discussion with colleagues from the DG Employ, but also with Italy, with Germany, with Austria and other countries, in order also to pilot the activities for what we call the European Social Security Pass, where it's about exchanging information concerning social insurance for mobile workers to facilitate the different control or to facilitate the life of the mobile worker when they are in another countries. So in terms of presentation of EBSI, of course, all those type of use cases are implemented with the model for verifiable credential, with a specific role for wallet providers. But of course, we rely on a strong network of nodes that we will continue to upgrade and to improve. And the next slide, we have today more than 40 nodes spread all across Europe. I mean, almost all the countries who are not yet here, but we have more than 20, exactly 23 countries which host today a node for EBSI, and the network is subject to evolution with the objective to reinforce it with new nodes that can participate to the EBSI operation. Next slide before I stop is just to remind you the roadmap, and after some years where we have started to develop and to test the EBSI, we have opened last year the early adopter program, which has enabled to work with different projects coming from different countries that we have regrouped under the multi-university pilot. You will see today the outcome of this initiative, and we are now on the point to make EBSI to reach the stage of production. We are finalizing legal document with the EBP, with the different representative. And we hope that by this summer, I mean, starting, we can declare the EBSI to be in production during the summer, and that we hope that the first operation will be done from September or before the end of the year for sure. So this quarter is an important one to mark the the beginning of EBSI in its production life, which will not prevent us to continue to work in pre-production and to be able to pilot new use case, or even to continue to pilot use case in the education area, because people still need time in order to decide to adopt the EBSI in view to support their services. So EBSI will be ready in production, but in parallel of that, we'll continue to pilot things in pre-production. And beyond 2022, in 2023, and in the future year, we have, of course, a lot of ambition for the EBSI with the European Blockchain Partnership. Continuously improve the network and the different solutions that we use for the EBSI, with the introduction of a new protocol, if it is justified, with always more contributors like wallet providers, with always more use case that we can implement in EBSI, both in production or in pre-production. We need also to create with the EBP a new legal entity using a new instrument that is provided at European level. And another initiative which is running in parallel of the EBSI, which is called the blockchain PCP. PCP stands for pre-commercial procurement. It is to prepare for new solutions that could help us to upgrade the EBSI in the coming years in order to meet more demanding, let's say, use case in terms of transaction throughput or energy consumption. So you see that we have different initiatives that will become more concrete in 2023 and beyond. So it's just the beginning of the journey. And but it's important that today we mark where we are, and that you see what is already possible to do with the EBSI infrastructure. With that, I propose to stop my presentation, and I give you the floor back to you, Maxime.
Thanks so much, Pierre. Actually, I'm going to hand the floor back over immediately to Daniel, who's going to follow up from what Pierre just said and go a bit more in depth into the use cases, which are capabilities, but I'll let him explain that. Daniel.
Okay, thank you very much, Maxime. Good morning, everybody, and happy to be here. And as Maxime has mentioned, I will go into more depth about the EBSI use cases. So Pierre has highlighted how EBSI is an infrastructure where we can deploy multiple use cases. So in this part, I will go a bit into introduction about the use case lifecycle and the capabilities that we are aiming. So next slide. So this is a bit what Pierre already mentioned. So EBP EBSI is working on several multiple use cases, which we a bit have distributed in different categories. So we look at use cases that are looking at the track and trace capabilities, like SME funding, document traceability. So a lot of member states with their stakeholders are working on those aspects. We're also working on those trusted data exchange use cases, asylum process management, but also trusted data sharing. But one that we are focusing on today is what we have called the verified credentials use cases, the big umbrella about how we can share in a new way data of citizens. And there we look at self-sovereign identity, social security, and diploma. And those, of course, on diploma and education will be the ones that we will be going into more depth. But as Pierre has also mentioned, that is also not the only use cases. The use cases will be extended, and potentially IP management, other aspects will be also included in the future. So we are supporting multiple aspects. But what is a life cycle of a use case? Because a use case is not just a project that we implement, it's an ecosystem that we build. And that, of course, takes time, takes, of course, a lot of engagement with different partners. So a life cycle, and that is normally used in EBSI, is we're starting with a selection of a use case where some ideas emerge from in the public sector, from in DBP, or from in partners, from in other policy areas, where we say, okay, this has a potential to be changed by blockchain, by the capabilities that we have. So the first aspect is that we select use cases, but already also appoint a convener. So today I'm here as a convener, but also my colleagues. I'm a bit a facilitator of those aspects, trying to align the different aspects or the different requirements. So that is to facilitate that ecosystem. This is an important role and of course an important aspect to align those kind of things. After the selection and after the ideation phase is going, a life cycle of course needs to be developed, and then we enter into the next phase. That development is not something that a team does in isolation. It is about exchanging, it's about having the right requirements, it's about also aligning the different views on those kind of things. So building that decentralized ecosystem, developing, of course, takes time and takes alignment, and is also not something that the public sector does in isolation. It's also where we reach out to different stakeholders to see, okay, public sector is building those kind of capabilities, how they align with your processes. So a lot of engagement, a lot of interaction is needed. An important aspect, and that's also the aim of today, is of course to pilot those use cases. Once they are developed, once they are in the MVP status, we wanted to provide the necessary means to pilot those use cases, test them in a real context, not always with real data, but in real, near real life context, so that we see what do they change, what are the gaps that we still have. And that's where, but we'll hear a bit more in the next slides, is how the early adopter program is started. We wanted to actively pilot in that cross-border interaction to see how those capabilities work. And of course, a last step in that life cycle is of course the adoption of a use case. It's not something that we just implement and it's there. It's also something that we need to scale up. We need to have something stable that grows and that more and more stakeholders are picking up. So the adoption is also an important step that requires a lot of energy where to see so. So in that life cycle, and that's also what we follow for each use case, try to see from the selection towards adoption, how this can be implemented in the multiple complex aspect. Next slide. Now, and that's also a bit the aim of today. In EBSI, we have in the past 2 years or 3 years even more, I worked a lot on verified credentials. So we're gonna aim today to look at, okay, what this is today. The other use case will follow the same life cycle, but today we're here to see, okay, what are the capabilities and verified credentials. So let's have a look at this aspect. And we have those 3 use cases that are linked. The first one, not really a use case, but more a capability, a model, a concept that a lot of member states with their stakeholders were interested in, and that's about the self-sovereign identity model. So we wanted to demonstrate how EBSI can be an added value for that model, where we can interact, interchange, share identity credentials based on a verified credential lifecycle. So that you have something, a verified identity, we named it, that issued by country A can easily be verified and easily be shared with an entity in country B. Of course, always to see how can we make this simple. Maybe a lot of people have experience in this big audience about interchanging cross-border interaction. You know that is very complex, very cumbersome to achieve those kind of things. We try to see how this model can simplify things, but always have, as the speakers from Digital already mentioned, of course, have a trustworthy and reliable cross-border verification process. And that's where our first use case / capability is aiming at. Next slide. Of course, that's a verified credentials model of the self-sovereign identity concept is a general concept, but we want also to implement it in a real life context. And one of the first use cases that we implement this is in the diploma use case. How can a student that has earned an educational credential in one country use that in interaction in another country? So a big cross-border dimension. A big problem also in Europe that want to stimulate as much as possible student mobility and work mobility, but we have the trouble, how can we trust the diploma credentials that are shared? So verified attestation issued again by one country needs to be verified by another country is, and I think the demos will also go into that, is a very difficult process, requires a lot of work. So how can we change that and make it more aspect? And again, trying to see how it's making simplicity and how cross-border verification, which is a complex process, can be much easier done. Yeah. So that's of course not only diploma, but also extending to the lifelong learning aspect. Yeah, so that was something that we really focused on in interaction with multiple stakeholders to try to achieve those kind of things. Yeah? Yeah. Next slide. But we didn't stop at education. We are also actively involved and interacting with the social security area. Yeah. The same applies here. You have, as a worker, a lot of documents that you need to prove for your social security, your health insurance, your work permits. All those kind of documents are complex in a national context, but even worse in an international context. Yeah? So again, a use case group was formed, try to see how can EBSI help us in that aspect. Yeah? They focus to a PDA-1 document, which is a portable document to prove certain social security context, and can we issue that also again as a credentials so that a worker can present it towards an inspector from another country and has the knowledge to also again in a simple way and a reliable way check that aspect without cumbersome interaction and steady aspect. That is of course in more easy for the worker, but also more easy for all the administrations. Next slide. Now let's have a bit of look more in practice how this model will work. I will go very high level. I think the next speaker, Joao, will go into more details, and of course the demos will be the perfect illustration and inspiration about how this really works. This is not only a theoretical model, but it's really working. So let's look at a simple diploma example. And of course, I will also use this opportunity to also look at, okay, what are the roles that you see? So in the different demos, you'll be also seeing the same roles. So this is a bit in the introduction towards that. Of course, the most important role today and in all our demos and all our concept is, of course, that one in the middle. The student, the citizens, the holder. Who has the wallet where he all store his credentials, where he requests certain things, where he shares certain things. So that is at the very heart of a system is, of course, that user. But of course, he needs to have credentials, and that come from an issuer. An issuer, in this case, a university that issues certain credentials to the students on after he is asking about. But to make it sure that we know that it's really the university that means and not some fake university or somebody applying to that kind of thing, we also established a big extended governance model where we also mention where, okay, who is defining that universities is indeed a university. And that way we initiated what we have called the Trusted Accreditation Organization, TAO, something that you will hear in the demo. And that is also pointing out in each country or maybe from multiple countries, what are universities that can really issue a diploma. So that they can issue a diploma or a credential. That kind of organization, the governance model is of course needed if we go to the other side where we have verifiers. Verifiers that need to interact with that holder that receives information, receives credentials, and can easily track that it's coming from the right issuers. Next slide. So those are the parties. Keep that in mind, though you will see those persons appearing time by time. And in a very overview aspect, you see the interaction that I always was mentioning. Joao will go into much more detail on this and the demos even more. So the holder is at the very heart. He demands, of course, the first thing that he wants is, okay, give me that credential, give me that diploma, give me that educational credential or social security credential in a format that I can store in my wallet. So the first interaction is, of course, with the issuer. That issuer has his public keys anchored in the EBSI ledger and also the TAO, so that we really know that if an issuer gives a credential that is really from its part. And when the holder or the students going to interact with a university, another country, another company, he shares those credentials, and that university or the company can easily check on the ledger, on the registries on EBSI, is that indeed the credentials issued by the right university and issued to the right student holder, and not something else, not somebody who's faking that. And what is also the power from this model, Joao will go into more detail about that, is of course that there is no interaction between the verifier and the issuer. So no risk about privacy violation or correlation of certain things, of track and trace. The holder is the centerpiece, he controls the interaction, and there is no linking or no complex integration between verifiers and issuers. That's the power, and that's also the power of the scalability. So that is also the focus that we do. We see EBSI is a capability, a supporting component of a much bigger ecosystem. And that's also what we will demonstrate during today. Next slide, and then we'll give with this next slide happily the floor to Joao, who will give you more details how this model really works and how a new way of sharing information can be achieved. Joao, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Daniel. Yes, indeed. Now it's me. Maxine, do I share the slides or do you share the slides?
So I think it's better if you share your own slides because you have quite a dynamic presentation style. So I'm going to give you a minute to transition. In the meantime, I will just say Joao works at European Commission's DG Digit, and he leads the team that works on the technical side of EBSI on the European Commission's part. And we just heard from Daniel, who is part of the European Blockchain Partnership as a convener. So the member state perspective has been represented. Joao will go into a bit more detail into this family of use cases that we call verifiable credentials. So for those of you in the chat who were curious about it, well, now's your time. Please listen in because this will help you also understand the demos better. Joao, please go ahead.
Do you see me well with my background? Everything seems according to plan?
You look a little strangely cut out, but
Exactly.
we see your slides very well.
Okay. The strangely cut out, indeed. I'm going to cut then the camera option, I guess. It's
Yes,
better.
what
Or
you
should
can
I
do is you
proceed?
can remove yourself from in front and we can pin your video.
Sorry for this. These things happen, and I'm just simply to stop the video, and I will just share the slides without me in front. So like this, you will be able to see the slides, even though you will not see me. I'm here, you will hear me. That's what matters. So good morning, everyone, again, and a warm welcome to you, and of course, for having registered and being here today, and now being part of the EBSI family. We really, really appreciate that. And I will explain what do we mean about verifiable credentials and how we have implemented those in the EBSI project. But I will not start immediately with a crash course on verifiable credentials. I will actually start with the problem we are trying to address. And I will touch upon the latest buzz on the internet. You have all heard about it, which relates to the Champions League final of last week, where, as you may know, there have been allegations of fake tickets to the final that have caused apparently a lot of issues with the entry in the stadium. Now, what is quite interesting is that we are in 2022. We are a very technologically advanced society, but nonetheless, fake tickets continue to be a problem. Now, There is a discussion whether or not there has been as many fake tickets as apparently UEFA has said. I understand that, but I also saw that everyone agreed that fake tickets are a problem, and a problem that has not been solved yet, which is quite interesting if you think about it, right? Now, if we look at the problem of fake, this goes beyond the tickets of football matches. This touches upon all sides of our society. So if you look at, of course, the classical money laundering through falsification, well, billions apparently go through this process. If you think about illegal products and counterfeits, again, same issue. Documents. We are thinking about here diplomas, but this can be done to any document. Any document can be faked. Think about labels. Think about the COVID tests. What I want to say here is that as our society moves from physical to digital, faking becomes even a bigger problem. And I was wondering, and we should ask ourselves, why is it so difficult to distinguish something from being real from being fake, right? Why is that? I think that there are two sides to this problem. One can see it as, well, it's not that hard to fake things, right? It's not that hard to fake a PDF. It's not that hard to fake even, you know, a document on paper. It's not that difficult, actually. The other side is also to think about, it's not that easy to verify information. So I think we have to consider the two sides. On one hand, faking is not that hard, but on the other hand, it's not that easy to verify information. And therefore, we need to address this issue seriously, because as we move from physical to online, it will even become harder to tell whether something is fake or true. And I think we now see this on the media every day, but we are also going to more and more interact with people through online means. We will never actually see those people, but we will be receiving information from them. We will actually not ever have met physically, but we will be working with them probably for a long time. So being able to verify is going to be more and more important. So let's continue then. What I find interesting also when asking myself these questions is that the verification of information was never easy. So if we go back in time, one of the reasons that we today have national registers or authentic sources of information, so the population register or the vehicles register, is because verification of information was extremely important. Think about taxation. So if I want to know whether or not you're the owner of a certain building, I must know for certain. I cannot guess it, you know. So the creation of national registers, and I'm showing here the picture of Napoleon because this is one example in the famous book of Piketty about how important it was to arrive to taxation, was the creation of registers where information could be verified. And of course, those that could access those registers, and then the creation of notaries and the creation of a number of institutions that could tell whether or not something was fake or real. Now, this was a major advancement when it comes to the paper world or the classical way that society worked. And much has advanced since then, but we still trust a lot on registers. If the information comes to us, and if we want to know for certain whether or not it is real, we look for a register where the information should be authentic, where no one could have faked it. Now, nowadays, these authentic data sources are digitized, most of them, or almost all of them, and they are many times online. So indeed, today we can go to well, the public administration, our local public administration, or regional, or even national, and get some paper, but you can also do it online. When it comes to verification, the online verification actually does not work in a way that you just present the documents yourself. And if you do so, the verifier often also has to go and check whether or not that document that you presented is still accurate. Because of course, you can go get the document from the register, either online or physically, you give it to the verifier, but in between, something could have changed, right? So the verifier should then be able to actually contact the governmental entity if he wants to be certain that the information is what you say it is, and then he should be able to access that authentic source of information, that register. Now, this takes a long time, and I'm not saying it doesn't work, because everyone and everything now is online. So this pattern is definitely something that will continue to be around. We in Digit, we are implementing several projects where access to authentic sources of information is the main topic of the project. So we are bringing these registers online, and we are making them accessible across borders. This is a major investment in all member states, and we will continue to do so. But nonetheless, we have to think about that our society is becoming more and more digital, and we need to find other patterns to be sure that information can be trusted. This is why today we are discussing a different way of sharing information, which is actually the so-called self-sovereign scenario. Why is it self-sovereign? Because I'm not accessing an authentic source of information. I myself can carry the information, and that information can be trusted. So when I give that information to a verifier, he will be able to verify it without going to an authentic source of information. He can do it on the spot. The verifier receives the information, and he will have all the elements needed to be sure that the information I give to him or her is authentic and is true and is real. That's the point. That can be done online, or that can be done physically, because I will be using my phone. So I can upload, or I can show, can be a QR code. You know all this. This is the scenario that I'm showing, that Daniel spoke about. So typically on the left-hand side, you have the issuer of the information. That doesn't change. So if the issuer of information is the population register, it will continue to be so for my birth certificate, for example, or the vehicles register, whatever that might be. That will continue to be exactly as it happens today. Now, the difference is that the issuer will be able to turn this document into a verifiable document. And, and the institution will then send that document to my mobile phone, typically, via a trusted channel, and I will be able to store it and then show it to the verifier. This is where the EBSI ledger will also play a role, because as we will see, the verifier will need to be sure of two things. Can I trust the person giving me the information? And can I trust, of course, the issuer of the information? This is extremely important. If you are a verifier, you must be sure of these two questions. And I will repeat, because these two questions, they look easy to solve, but actually they are not. Because when you receive information, you typically don't know whether or not that university somewhere in Europe actually exists or ever existed, probably changed name, and if the holder was the one that, for example, that diploma was issued to. Right? So put yourselves in the shoes of a verifier. I come from somewhere in Europe. I give you a diploma. How do you know that that university actually exists? How do you know that that diploma was issued to me? These are challenges that have to be tackled. And again, it's not only for a diploma, it's for any piece of information. Think about any element that today goes online. A piece of news, anything that you see online. Would you not like to know who is the issuer? Can it be trusted? Is it really this issuer? When was this put online? You know, who wrote it? Who is this person that is writing this article? Can I verify it, right? This would become much more transparent, of course, and these questions will need to be addressed. That's my feeling, and this is why we are so invested in improving the current way that information is shared online. And we will not do that with a magic blockchain. A magic blockchain will not work. It doesn't produce the result that we want. So there is no magic here. It's really the ecosystem that has to move to a different level. So 3 key elements here is, first and foremost, a new way of expressing the information, a new format of this information. This is called verifiable credentials because it essentially says there is a certain set of metadata, there's a certain set of claims about someone or something that can be verified, and this information is going to be signed, so it can never be changed. The signature will make it impossible for the information to change, and at the same time, very easy to verify. The ledger will be another element of the solution. It is important to understand that we are moving out of this dependency of central registers, so we should be coherent. And this is why we believe that a distributed way of making information available that helps us, in this case, to verify who issued that information, makes perfect sense. So it's a distributed ledger that will help the verifiers know whether or not the issuer can be trusted. The issuer, I repeat. And the final element is the wallet. So we are, of course, promoting, as you know, wallets coming from national initiatives, coming from the market. We don't, let's say, try to crowd out other initiatives by providing an EBSI wallet. We want as many wallets as possible to be compatible with our specifications, and we want, of course, the user or the citizen to choose her or his wallet based on his or her requirements. We believe in free choice, and we believe, of course, in interoperability. So the wallets should all be interoperable with the different issuers, the verifiers, and the ledger. So what, if we are successful, we will be able together to achieve with this ecosystem that will work across borders and across sectors? We will get information that is almost impossible to fake, but very easy to verify, which is completely the opposite to what we see today. Information that is very easy to fake, but very difficult to verify. So this would be, in our opinion, a game changer for the online space. If we could verify the information easily, and we could be sure about where it comes from, who wrote it, then, of course, we can have, I would say, a better society overall. So what do we want to achieve? High level of certainty that the issuer is trusted, alongside with the time of issuing, the expiry date, all those elements that we call metadata that should be there in every piece of information. We want to be sure that the information was issued to a given holder, and that holder there is the one. We don't need to actually know much more about the holder. So this we will use what we call deeds, so identifiers that tell nothing about actually the identity of the holder, but will be able to ensure that the information was sent to this specific person. And then, of course, we want the verifiers to have easy access to the information so that they can verify everything easily, independently of the fact that the citizen comes from anywhere in Europe. So we want to make the life of verifiers much easier than today. So let's look at what we want to achieve. And as I said, it's not going to be us alone. It's going to be this ecosystem that we are creating together with the member states, together with the private sector, together with the standardization bodies. So it's the whole ecosystem that has to step up and understand that this mission is worth it. It's almost inevitable that we need to invest in technologies that support verification of information that is shared online. As I said, accessing national registers and authentic sources of information is not going to disappear. We don't believe, one or the other. Both can coexist and will coexist. But what we want to be sure, of course, is that we are not in Europe delaying the investment in verification of information because everything is moving online. So as from the pandemic, we know that it's essentially inevitable. We will carry out a lot of things only online. We will meet a lot of people only online. So we need to be sure that we can verify easily online. So what I'm showing here is exactly the model that Daniel has shown, but I want to go a bit deeper without getting extremely technical, because these are easy concepts. This is nothing to do with technology. This is just simple, like logic, simple, let's say, common sense. So if you are a verifier and you receive something from someone, as I said, you need to kind of trust that person that sent you the information. That's essential. That's common sense. The second element is that once you receive the information, you want to be able to verify it, and you want to be sure that it comes from a trusted source, right? So if I receive a document from someone, I want to be able to verify that document. I want to be sure that the person that gave me that document can be trusted, and whoever issued that document is also trustworthy. That's what you want to do if you are a verifier. So if we now look at the left side, we have the issuers of information. The issuers of information, as I explained, will be the same as today. In the past, they issued information on paper. Today, they do it on a PDF. Tomorrow, they will do it as a verifiable credential. It's a natural evolution. Paper, PDF, verifiable credential. It's natural, just happens so. Then, me as a holder, what do I need to do? Well, I will need to have on my mobile device or on my PC the so-called digital wallet. The digital wallet will store that information, and it will also share that information with verifiers, keeping the information under my control. So this is why we call this the self-sovereign model. I am the one that decides who actually gets which information. So when a verifier accesses a register, typically does it on your behalf. You have no clue on what is going on. In this case, you are the one deciding to share the information and deciding what information you share. The ledger will be there to support the verification process because it will ensure that the issuers are accredited to issue that information and that they can be trusted. Key messages here. If you're looking at the self-sovereign model, you need two important things. You need to trust the holders, so you need some sort of digital identity model, and you need to trust the issuers. Now, we have solved definitely the problem of trusting issuers of information, making that information also verifiable, because we support a standard that allows that. And this is where you see there the EBSI ledger. We are talking about the trust model for issuers. So when me as a verifier receives information, I will be able to go to the ledger and retrieve the so-called public keys that allow me to verify the signature of the issuers of the information. I will also be able to see that that university is not a fake university because it was accredited by an institution, what we call TAO, that is able to do so. So, for example, a Ministry of Education. I can say, well, indeed, in Portugal or in Spain, wherever you want, this university has been accredited by, some sort of Ministry of Education, for example, and can issue this type of diplomas. So that's where the ledger actually is helping a lot on the trust model for issuers. We could have done it centrally. Think about like a central register with all this information about everywhere in Europe. Well, that is possible, of course. But again, we want to move away from the centralization aspect, the intermediation aspect. So the ledger will be fully distributed, and it will make possible for the verifiers to access this information real time, which of course is an advantage, because when you access the information real time, you're accessing fresh information. Now, the digital identity model in EBSI, we don't prescribe one. We don't mandate that you must use this type of digital identity model for citizens. We are not prescribing that. We are just giving a very clear indication for the trust model of the issuers, but not of the digital identity. When it comes to the digital identity, EBSI, well, actually supports a plethora of choices. If you want to use a centralized approach, you can do so. So if you have national EID means that you would like to use to identify the holders, we are compatible with that. If you want to use some federated approach or even private sector approach, you can do that. But again, as Daniel explained, we also have a way to do it using verifiable credentials, what we call the European self-sovereign identity model. That is also one of the possibilities. So we are not incompatible with any digital identity initiative. We welcome all of those, and we give the choice to the different implementers to use the one that suits the best. And actually they can combine them as well. So that's a big advantage. And why is it a big advantage? Because we have many aspects to identity in Europe. And we know that depending on the sector. So we will be, of course, wanting this model to be used for any type of information sharing. As we explained, in Europe, we want to get more mobile. Maybe I want to study in a member state, work somewhere else, live even in a third one. That will all become more and more common. And what does that mean is that we will need to share information with more and more verifiers. Because if we go around in Europe, of course, we will need to move our car from one country to the other, move our address, yeah, you name it. So what you see here, of course, is this very simple model. There are holders of information, meaning me and you, everyone. We will carry our most valuable documents that prove that we have studied, in my case, economics, that we have worked, in some member state, that we have come from, my case, Portugal. So all that information will be with us in our digital wallet. It will come from trustworthy sources, not some phony university, real ones, and those will be verifiable. Of course, that will reduce the problem of fake information online. That will reduce the problem of people having their identity stolen or parts of their identity stolen. And what we want, of course, is that the verification will become super easy. Even you can verify the information you carry, which today is not as easy as it kind of looks. And what is also important to stress, and I think Pierre already said that, we are not just inventing the specifications that we are implementing. We work as an ecosystem, so we rely on well-known standards, and here you see them. So the first and foremost is the standard for verifiable credentials. It doesn't come from the European Commission, actually comes from W3C, the so-called decentralized identifiers, self-issued identifiers, also comes from W3C. The way that we share the information with issuers and verifiers is coming from this Open ID Connect standard. Then we also, of course, rely a lot on EIDAs. We like, of course, to reuse as much as we can. And you see there the JWT RFC family that is also being used for the proofs. So we believe in standards, we believe in interoperability, we believe in making sure that everyone can join. And this is why I started my presentation by welcoming all of you, because I mean, if you like these slides, just share them. If you want to change them, do so. Everything is open source. We believe that the way forward is to actually join forces and work together. So if we want to make sure that in the future, the steps that are shown on the screen actually become a part of everyday life, it will really require everyone to join in and to add as many use cases as possible. So I will run through the steps of the demos. They will show what I'm going to tell. It's always better to show than to tell, but I will give you 5 minutes of quick explanation of the steps that will be part of the demos. I already showed the so-called issuer holder verifier model supported by EBSI. Very important, EBSI supporting the issuer's trust model. We are compatible with any digital identity model of any sector, so important there. The issuer and the holder will be able to share information thanks to OpenID Connect, which is the standard that we use, and then the holder will be able to share those presentations with the verifiers, again using OpenID Connect. The format of the documents is going to be the W3C format using our specific way of understanding that standard. We call it the EBSI playbook of verifiable credentials. If you don't know it, go and have a look. It's online. And then we have a ledger that allows verifiers to retrieve information about issuers independently, of course, of where the verifier is. It's going to be able to access this information real time, and it's going to be very easy. So the first step is the setup of the setup step, of course. So if you are an issuer, what you need to do is to create a private and a public key. You need those because you will sign the verifiable credentials. Without those, you cannot, of course, issue a verifiable credential. And you will need this magic deed. The deed is a decentralized identifier, self-issued. You can think about it as your IBAN of your bank account. It's just a very long string with, so nothing particularly special, but actually it allows to uniquely identify the issuer without knowing much about the issuer itself. And the same will happen with the holder. It's just like the IBAN, you know, like you just see a long string with letters and numbers. But you will need all three, and you will create then what we call a deed document, and you will register that on the EBSI ledger. That deed document will provide all information needed by the verifier, because the verifier will be able to access that document to retrieve the public keys and be sure that the information was signed by this specific issuer. So the registration of the issuer on chain is extremely important. Then the second step is, of course, the accreditation. The issuer must have been accredited by some sort of higher level organization, institution. That can be a Ministry of Education. The accreditation is a verifiable accreditation again. We are coherent with ourselves, so the verifier will be able to verify that the accreditation was issued by, I don't know, the Ministry of Education. And then we, of course, have to upgrade the systems that the issuers have, because they will need to issue verifiable credentials. Me as a holder, I have to select a EBSI conformant wallet. I will also need a deed, something that identifies me uniquely without giving away my identity. That's important. The deed is just, again, a very long string of numbers. I will also need a public and a private key, because when I present the information, I will also sign, but nothing will get stored on EBSI. Nothing will get stored on the EBSI ledger. Everything stays on the wallet. The wallet is going to have that information, because unlike the issuer, the citizen is in contact with the verifier. So I can provide to the verifier the public key so that he can check my signature. The same does not happen, of course, with the issuer. The issuer is never in contact. It doesn't need to be in contact with the verifier. This is why we need to put that information somewhere, and we would like to put it in a distributed ledger, the EBSI ledger. So moving on, issuer issues the verifiable credential. The credential has metadata, including the unique identifier, the deed of the issuer. So I can be sure that this is this issuer. And you will make a number of claims about that citizen or about that thing. Again, this works for objects as well. You can think about cargo. You can think about the brand. I just make claims, and those claims can be verified. I'm claiming this person has a major on a certain subject with a given score, and voila, this can now be verified because I'm going to actually sign this information, and the information is now, as we like to say, tamper evident or tamper proof, so no one can actually now mess it around and change it. What it is, and it can be verified. Simple enough, the holder will at some point find, I don't know, another university. He wants to go for a master's or some PhD. Or he might want to get a job, and he wants to be sure that the employer can know whether or not he has a certain degree. So he will share that, and the holder will be able to perform all these verifications. He will be able to be sure that the diploma was issued to this person because, again, the deed of this citizen, of this holder, is part of the credential. The credential was signed, cannot be changed, and therefore, again, this deed does not give away the identity. It's just a very long identifier, but makes sure that if you sign this presentation of your diploma to a verifier, when I give it, I sign, and that signature will be able to be coherent with the deed used by the issuer when issuing the diploma. So no one else but me can share that information, and that can be verified that the diploma was issued to me, but you will not even need to know who I am and exactly my name and my identity. The metadata will make it easier, of course, to check the time of issuance, whether or not it should have expired, and it will make a number of claims. It will also be signed by the issuer, not only by the holder, and that information can be retrieved from the EBSI ledger. This is why EBSI ledger is marked there. It's signed by the holder. Again, this verification can be done using the public key shared from the wallet. So that is immediately done by the verifier. And finally, he will check the accreditation of the issuer by retrieving it from EBSI ledger. So overall, 2 elements will come from the ledger. The other elements come directly from the wallet, and the verifier is sure that the information is authentic, that the issuer can be trusted, that the issuer issued this information to this citizen, and that the citizen has presented it because, again, the citizen also signs with the wallet the presentation so that it cannot be, of course, given to someone else that now shows my diploma. That will not work because, again, we keep this very tight link between the information and who holds the information through the use of these deeds, these decentralized identifiers, these very long strings, and we can continue this discussion some other time. So I have to rush. Digital wallets, they're very important. We want as many as possible part of the EBSI family. We already have 11 of them. They have to go through a conformance testing process that will lead these wallets to be shown on our website. The conformance testing process is quite straightforward. So in case you are interested, just go online and well, join in. We would like to, of course, hear from you in case you are interested to be shown on the EBSI website. And without further ado, coffee break is now. Maxine, I hand it over to you.
Thanks so much. Wow. Yes, thanks a lot for this presentation. Super informative. I think you all get the point. Verifiable credentials are all about verification. EBSI is all about trusting verification. You will find out more about all of this in practice during our demos after the break. But for now, I think it's time to take 15 minutes in order to all collect ourselves. So I will say that we will be back at 10:48 for the remainder of our presentation, where we will introduce you to our demos. So Very quick note, for those of you who are technically minded, who are asking questions in the chat, our team will post links to our website specifications where all of the technical information regarding the data models, the schemas, everything that describes the verifiable credentials exchange that you will see in our demos will be made available to you. So see you all at 10:48 for the rest of our day. Thanks so much for your attention and time.